The Worst Equestrian Necromancer, Chapter 13, Ponies, Pirates, and Pies. Princess Celestia always had time for her faithful students, whether they would be the arrogant yet brilliant Sunset Shimmer or the humble and bookish Twilight Sparkle. Of course, there were days when she wanted to put some sleeping potion in Twilight's tea, but days like today made up for it. Days where she walked into her study to find Twilight hyperventilating, Black Sun singing while tied to a chair, and Tooth happily wagging his massive tail while warbling along. Tooth was also tied up, but he didn't seem to mind. She paused to listen in to the ditty. Mama, ooh, didn't mean to make you cry. He paused as he noticed Celestia. This isn't what it looks like? Celestia giggled. This caused Twilight to jerk up and face her. Celestia paid her little mind as she looked over both Black Sun and Tooth.
Honestly, I don't even know what it looks like. Might I inquire as to why you are tied up in my study with Tooth?
Twilight stared in abject horror as Celestia calmly trotted up to Tooth and undid the bindings, happily laughing as he chirped and warbled while rubbing his face against her fetlocks.
Down, Tooth, down. I believe I still have some work to do.
She turned to Twilight.
Hello, my faithful students. How are you today?
Twilight's eye twitched.
Black Sun had a necromantic lizard in his home, and Trixie summoned his dad, and I don't even know what's going on anymore!
She stamped a hoof on the ground as Celestia embraced her with her wings. Snuggling between Celestia's wings, Twilight continued.
And I tied up Black Sun because he might be a necromancer, but he's a good friend and I feel bad. I just want to figure all this out and go home.
Celestia smiled, but as she opened her mouth to give her student a new lesson in friendship, she was interrupted by the voice of Black Sun. This is cute and all, but can I get a hand here? I'm kinda stuck. Celestia tittered as her magic cut through his bindings, allowing him to flex his wings with a happy groan. Oh gosh, that feels so much better. He hastily righted his cap, which was only barely covering his horn, and stood tall. Well, that was fun, but I got stuff to do, so I'm gonna... The golden glow of Celestia's magic cut him off from the door, causing him to lower his eyes. Oh, double crap. Celestia looked between Tooth and Black Sun.
So you two, what happened?
Black Sun rubbed the back of his head with a hoof. Tooth? Wanna take point here? The Velociraptor looked between him and Celestia. Once. Twice. Then ran behind her desk, tail still visible from around the corner. Black Sun sighed. Of course not. Traitor! He ran a hoof through his short mane before sitting down. So, maybe I asked if Twi wanted to look through some of my old maps to help find whoever summoned that pirate ship in Ponyville. Celestia raised a single eyebrow, forcing more out of Black Sun. And it is possible that Tooth scared her a bit by jumping on me for a greeting after I got Trixie out of my house. Celestia lowered her eyebrow as she shuffled Twilight out of her hug and back onto the floor.
You did well given the circumstances, Twilight, but Black Sun and his father have a certain deal with me in regards to black magic. One that he should have known to mention to you.
Black Sun rubbed his fetlocks together, embarrassed. However, Twilight stared at her mentor.
You mean they're allowed to do this?
Celestia nodded, causing Twilight to begin another Sparkle-brand meltdown.
But black magic corrupts your very soul! It can turn you into thrall of the very magic that you're trying to use! All of the experiments were halted because I had such a high risk, and...
She was cut off as a white hoof was carefully placed over her lips.
Twilight, both Black Sun and his father have taken certain precautions in order to counter these effects, though they haven't shared their methods.
Black Sun perked up. Well, I wouldn't call them precautions. They're more like fundamental differences in magic theory that have been a real trick to work around since I'm a pony. It's not something we can share as we have to tailor each black magic spell for me personally. Dad's always gonna have one up on me because of that. There was a pregnant pause as Black Sun realized what he had just said. Then another one as Celestia watched Twilight work it out. Black Sun spoke first. Crap, I just said that Dad wasn't a pony, didn't I? Celestia nodded.
Indeed you did, my little pony. Perhaps we should just go ahead and clear the air on the matter?
Twilight looked between Celestia and Black Sun, trying to come to terms with the massive amounts of information that she was getting. Black Sun nodded. Yeah, hopefully Dad isn't busy. If he is, this might be a bit more interesting. Celestia rolled her eyes as she sent the call to Rhaegar.
I'm sure this can't possibly have anything to do with the fact that you invited Twilight home when he definitely requested that you wait.
Black Sun gave a sheepish smile. Yeah, well, she needed my help. Celestia smiled.
Oh, little one, your constant assistance is admirable.
She gave him a wink as Twilight hid behind her wing.
Though I can sense a bit of your father scheming in you.
Black Sun might have had a response, but apparently Tooth had decided it was safe to come out. The skeletal bird decided to celebrate his newfound safety with a happy pounce on a Black Sun, nuzzling the pony while chirping happily. Celestia smiled as she sent a sliver of energy into the floating orb in the corner. It had barely rung once before a most chaotic scene came into view. Rhaegar appeared in the center of the room, dressed like a pirate from a bygone era. He was sporting a tricorn hat that sat cockeyed on his half-melted head, and a captain's coat that had a number of candy canes holstered instead of pistols. The pies and candy swarming through the air around him only added to the miasma of weird that emanated from the image. Rhaegar snapped them all out with a frantic yell.
Celestia, Rhaegar needs assistance, and the royal guards and the Wonderbolt send the elements!
All three ponies and one velociraptor stared as Rhaegar ducked so quickly his hat remained airborne. A pipe flew cleanly between the melted remains of his head and the hat before it popped back up, the hat landing softly in its original position.
Rhaegar's ship is overrun! Fools have invaded Rhaegar's realm! The prow's already lost and her supply of pies is almost exhausted!
The princess stared in utter confusion. This was the strangest scenario she had ever seen while calling Rhaegar, narrowly beating the instance where he had ascended Black Sun. She had thought that was the limit. But then she realized something.
Rhaegar, are you in Ponyville?
Rhaegar's image began running in place, a cupcake grazing his brown vest.
Indeed, Rhaegar was visiting his pirate ship for a spare skull.
He rolled forward and dived just under an oncoming pie, then quickly recovered his balance and slammed the door shut behind him. Twilight jumped out from behind Celestia's wing.
Hey, you're the necromancer who raised that pirate ship!
Rhaegar paused to look at Twilight's.
The young librarian from Ponyville, wielder of the elements of magic and a mare after Rhaegar's own heart. Oh, Rhaegar's seen your progress down the path of evil and approves of your knowledge-hoarding ways.
Twilight stared in a mix of horror and confusion as Rhaegar grabbed a board of wood and began nailing it over the door. Celestia stepped in.
So, Rhaegar, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are currently sitting in the hold of a pirate ship easily within my teleportation range?
Rhaegar froze. He turned to look at Celestia, which was unnerving given the fact that his skull ended just north of his nose. He then began spewing black smoke.
Teleportation relay, go!
And with that, the link ended. Silence swallowed the room as all the ponies stared at the blank spot in the room. It was a while before any of them spoke. Finally, Celestia broke the silence.
So, did he just fail to notice that his son was in the corner being viciously nuzzled by Tooth?
Twilight and Celestia shifted their view to Tooth and Black Sun, still sprawled out on the floor where they had been playing. Tooth had noticed the attention had shifted to him and slowly turned to face the alicorns. There was a silent pause and then a loud scream from Twilight as she remembered that the skeleton eyeing her was no longer bound. The door guards to the royal study had already had an interesting day. They had assisted Twilight in moving in one bound Pegasus and a strangely moving tablecloth. That wasn't particularly notable, as Twilight's experiments went. After all, they had been both on cleanup duty for the day, since she accidentally changed exactly 1/3 of the castle silverware into jello. However, interesting skipped several steps straight into legendary when a skeletal creature crashed through the door. Twilight was still screaming, nearly drowning out Celestia's laughter. This would still have been within Protocol 14C of guarding Celestia's chamber, if not for the Pegasus wrapped around the skeleton's tail as it fled. His expression had reached the perfect balance of unrestrained joy and terror normally found on a young foal's first dive bomb. Both guards looked at the scene and nodded to each other. Then they smartly turned and left, but not before the older guard brought out a piece of paper and stuck it to the wall. The paper was a standard guard form and calmly stated that the door guards had decided the situation was out of their pay grade and were utilizing a code 517 to go home for the day. Protocol 14C. Celestia has communicated with the secret necromancer. Do not file on the official reports. Code 517. Princess is on site to control the situation, and the guards have determined their presence is more likely to make the situation worse than improve it. Well, the beans were spilled, but to an extreme degree. But hey, maybe this is a good thing. Don't rightly know how, but I'm pretty sure it is somehow. Anyways, let's get on to our positive donators. Top donators are 630, J10 Man, Darkside, Only One Thing, and Ceru Orion. Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin Rolan, Stu Hex, Swordbrother and Mordred, Omicron Lyrae, Will, Chris, Twinkie, Hadzaza, Riot Soul, Iron Sky, Badass Waffle, Shadow Moon, and many more fantastic people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.